So, very good evening from India to everyone who have joined us for the prestigious IRE Talks hosted by Global Institute of Business Studies. I extend my heartfelt welcome to all of you. For those who are not a part of GIBS, a quick note about GIBS and IRE. We are the premium institute, a business management institute, I would say, from Bangalore, the Silicon Valley of India, the capital of the beautiful state Karnataka. And we are operational since last 12 years now. And we have a great diverse students from top north to the bottom south. And IRE, which stands for Innovation, Research and Entrepreneurship, has become like a flagship program in GIBS. I'm so very happy in the last 5 years we are able to nurture a lot many budding entrepreneurs from this program. And I think that's the moral responsibility of any business school to nurture tomorrow's leaders and to nurture tomorrow's entrepreneur, right? And in the last 1 year, we have been hosting a lot of experts, a lot of professionals from different parts of the world who addressed our students virtually on varieties of topics linking to entrepreneurship. And today I have my very good friend from Malaysia. I respect him a lot. I follow him a lot. He's been a great researcher, hardcore academician, I would say. Anyone would benchmark and look up to Professor Graham Kendall. And I'm so happy to welcome him on behalf of entire management team, the students who have joined from GIBS and from other institute. I extend my heartfelt welcome to Professor Graham Kendall, the Honorable Vice Chancellor from Mila University, Malaysia. Hearty welcome to you, sir. Such a pleasure having you.
Hi, thank you very much. Well, let me just, before we get started, extend my thanks to you. I know it sounds a bit like a love fest, but we don't go back that far, actually, probably a couple of years, but I feel as if I've known you for a long time. Sure. And it's very exciting to see the work that you're doing there. And, we follow each other on LinkedIn, and I think over the last 6 months, I've seen a lot of good things happening, for the last 2 years, but certainly over the last 6 months. So it's a great honour and privilege to be invited to contribute in any way I can in this sort of event. So thank you.
Likewise, Professor. In fact, I'm very happy to share to everyone that GIBS has officially signed a memorandum of association or understanding with Mila University last year with the support from Professor Graham. And we even hosted a 5-day FDP where Professor Graham and the former Vice Chancellor, Dr. Jason, inaugurated that event and delivered the fantastic keynote addresses. So, we believe in this. And we had a great opportunity to visit the beautiful campus of Mila. You shared some of the construction that is happening, and that's a breathtaking. I'm sure in 1 year, Mila campus is going to be extraordinary. I hope to visit that a second time, Professor Graham. I'm eagerly looking forward to.
Good. Anytime.
Great. So today we are here to discuss on a very important theme. I've seen Professor Graham doing a lot of his research from the front of AI as well. And since this IRE focuses more on entrepreneurship, I thought of linking both of it, AI and entrepreneurship. And I requested Professor Graham for that. I'm so very glad that he was able to accept our invitation, and indeed a real honor. So let's begin with this interaction. I have made it look like a panel discussion kind of a thing. I have some questions which will be posted to Professor Graham, and he will be answering those. And at the end of that, I'll be picking up some of the questions posted by the students in the chat boxes, and I'll take those questions on your behalf. Well, yes, Professor Graham, before I get into the subject matter of entrepreneurship, AI is making a lot of sound. Since I've known you from the last couple of years, your involvement in AI has been fantastic. You're doing a lot of deep research on that. So keeping aside entrepreneurship topic a bit away in the first question, what do you think the AI is trying to create it for the next generations? Where are we seeing this AI in the coming years?
I've been doing AI, and I put it in quotes, for probably about 25 years. But it's really difficult even now to say what AI is. When I started looking at AI, it was things like genetic algorithms, neural networks, which has obviously become the forefront technology. And it was always very exciting, but it was sort of hidden. And then November 2022, as I'm sure everybody is aware, suddenly AI come to the fore with ChatGPT was released by OpenAI. And suddenly everybody became an AI expert. And I thought I knew about AI, and I had read about ChatGPT and couldn't really believe what I was hearing. So I didn't try it. I didn't actually try ChatGPT till about, I don't know, 6 months later, say March 2024. And I thought, well, I've got to try it just to see what it's like. And I was absolutely blown away. I typed something in and couldn't believe what it came back with. It wasn't the AI that I knew. I'd heard about neural networks and all that sort of stuff, but and computational neural networks and deep learning and all of that stuff. But this was just on a whole different level. And that was, I mean, you can't believe it is now, but it's 3 years ago since it's released. And hardly a day goes by when there's not another AI application released, whether it's to do with generative AI text or videos or understanding or just chatbots or whatever. So it will be a very brave man to predict what it's going to be like in 10 years. Because if you had asked me this question, even in November 2022, when it first came out, I would have said then, oh, it's okay, it's good, it looks good, but actually it's not going to grow that quickly. But it has. It's just exponential growth. So I think one of the things I talk about AI quite a lot, and one of the things I say is that in the future, you need to understand AI. You need to understand what it's doing and what it's capable of doing. And I gave a talk recently. I was in Manila. I was giving a keynote talk in the Philippines, and my last slide said, "Leaders will not be replaced by AI, but leaders will be replaced by people who understand AI."
Absolutely.
So to get on in this world, I think I don't know what the future holds. I mean, it wouldn't be foolish to predict, but it will be wrong. But what I can predict is the people who they don't have to understand AI, but they have to understand what it's capable of and what its limitations are. And I think universities in the future there'll be courses on prompt engineering, because that's one of the big things that you need to be able to interact with AI. You need to know how to talk to it, how to use it. It's not Google search, it's a whole new beast. So I think, I don't know what the future holds for AI. I mean, I could make predictions, we all could, and we'd all be wrong, but you need to understand what it's capable of, how you interact with it, and how you use it ethically and in a good way to get the results that you want.
That's great. I'm still sticking with that point of AI now, because the whole world is talking about the great things, the advantages of AI. But I also heard Mr. Elon Musk making the statement very long back, AI is more dangerous than nukes. So what's your take on this?
Well, I think it possibly could be. I mean, there's always this danger, and the people that, I don't know, don't understand AI or are very negative, think it's going to take over the world, and they'll learn and then they'll turn against all the humans. I really don't think that's going to happen, because we always got a plug that we can pull out. I mean, we could hypothesize, well, they would run on batteries and plug each other in, etc., etc. But I don't think we're going to do that. But there is lots of dangers, and I'll talk about one danger that I know. The talk I was giving in the Philippines was about AI and academic publishing, which is what I tend to normally talk about. And generative AI, there's a thing called paper mills, where basically people generate a paper or create a paper, and then they sell it to a predatory journal, or they send it to a predatory journal, but they sell authorships. So they approach people like us and say, I'll sell you an authorship. Well, to do that in the past, pre-November 2022, it would take you quite a long time to generate a paper that was reasonably, could get past at least a cursory peer review. But now, I don't know how many people are on this talk. Let's say there's 20 of us here. If we, instead of listening to me, you could turn me off and go and generate a paper with Gen AI, we could create 100 papers each in the next hour. And then we could sell those authorships, and we could, send them to predatory journals. We could manipulate Google Scholar. And the danger of that is it undermines the credibility of the scientific archive. So the scientific archive has been there for 350 years.
Oh, okay.
And if we couldn't rely on that anymore, then all of human knowledge is somehow compromised. Okay, we could rely on it up to maybe November 2022, but after that, we haven't got any. It's not an integral database anymore. So if we can do that to the scientific archive, that you could come up with scenarios for almost any other sector of how AI could be damaging. So I don't think robots, etc., will take over humanity, but we could severely affect the way we live, work, the integrity of the data. And the problem is, if we generate these papers and they go into the scientific archive in predatory journals, then the large language models are learning. That's their data source now. So, if I say something totally outrageous and it gets published and in part of the scientific archive, then large language models will learn that. And that will become, the truth for someone else who asks it a question. So, there's lots of dangers in AI.
Yep.
I don't think they're potentially life-threatening. I don't think they're humankind threatening, but potentially they can do a lot of damage.
I know. I mean, having known you from the last 2 years and known your work in the research, you are dead against predatory journals and all that. I mean, you're in a war, if I'm right.
Yeah. For that reason, actually, it harms the integrity of the scientific archive.
That's pretty great. I mean, research ethics, I think that's a strong value that you possess.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. So, getting into entrepreneurship now, Professor Graham, India has been, I would say, this ecosystem has been created, and I could see a great transformation. This ecosystem of entrepreneurship getting into the next level. A lot of startups, a lot of young leaders today. I mean, young aspirant business entrepreneurs getting into their own startups, setting up their own entity. I would see that massively happening in India. You belong to Malaysia, so I would definitely love to know how is this entrepreneurship ecosystem in Malaysia, and yeah, I mean, I would want to know your viewpoint on this because you had one of the beautiful university over there. What's the student mindset? Do they really come up with this entrepreneurial mindset?
I think I think I mean, not just students, but a lot of people have this entrepreneurial mindset these days. And I
Hmm.
think if you're going to run a company,
Hmm.
I mean, when we were talking about this session, one of the questions was, can how would AI be a co-founder of a company?
Absolutely.
Now, I don't think that
That was
AI.
my next question, actually.
Okay, so but I don't think that AI can hold equity at the moment in the same way that it can't be an author of a paper, and it can't sit on the board in the same way that we don't allow AI to peer review papers. But they they can be instrumental in setting up a company. They can do a lot of market research for you. They can actually find out, what gaps there are in the market. If you go and ask, I'd say ChatGPT, but because that's the one I use. But when I say that, I mean any large language model. It can do market research. I mean, I can go and ask it a question saying, if I've got a social media profile of this, how would I monetize that? And it would tell me, and I could get it to look at my Twitter account, my LinkedIn account, my Insta account, etc., etc., and it can give me some ideas. Um, and I think we can all do that. We all know that's possible. But I think what's happening these days is that people are setting up companies that are based on AI. They're not using AI to be entrepreneurial. They are setting up AI companies. So as I said when we first started speaking, there's almost an AI app coming out every day, probably more than one a day. You look at LinkedIn and Insta and TikTok or whatever, there's often the 10 new things that you need to know about AI, the 10 new products that you're not using, why this product is better than ChatGPT. And they're being developed by entrepreneurs, but with not using AI to set the company up, but using AI as the business development model or as the
Absolutely.
underlying business model. So one of the discussions, obviously, we always have is, will AI put a lot of people out of work? And it almost certainly will. I'm not stupid enough to think that AI is not going to replace a lot of jobs, but that was the same in the Industrial Revolution. When they started producing spinning machines and weaving machines, and semiconductors come along in the third industrial revolution. Everyone thought that's the end of the job market. Actually, all it did was created more jobs, but in different sectors and for a more highly educated population. And I think that AI is going to do that for the entrepreneurial side of things, or setting up companies. The companies it's going to create are going to be different. Hopefully, get rid of the more mundane jobs. Maybe not for the people who hold those mundane jobs at the moment, but when we look back in 50, 60, 100 years, hopefully we can see society has improved overall as a result. Some people suffer, some people will benefit from it, but overall I think society will get better. And I think students have got that mindset. A lot of students, I think, gone are the 9-to-5 jobs. Not gone,
Absolutely.
but they will go.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. My father, my grandfather, when they went into work, that was it, a job for life. Everyone I know now of my age, and I'm pretty old now, but everyone my age moves around. They don't hold a job for life. It's not there anymore. And I think that's going to change even more. People are going to be more self-employed because they're setting up companies.
That's a fantastic statement. While we have coined this interaction as AI as a co-founder, you made a beautiful opening remarks highlighting about the AI's role. But nevertheless, we cannot ignore the human creativity. But I would definitely love to know in what specific areas of business creations, like ideations or product development or market research, can AI take an active co-founder role in this?
I certainly think it can, and I think probably a lot of people sit around looking for ideas on how to create a company. So I think you could certainly go in and ask AI, ChatGPT, and the large language models, what ideas has it got? What can it do? How can you create a business out of this? And it's not just a case. You could ask Google that, and Google would tell you. But what the large language models give you is it gives you access, probably to more information. Google might argue with that, but it probably gives you access to more information, but it certainly gives you more. It gives you access to more information when it's been trained on. Google is just the search engine. It will just search pages and return you a page. Large language models will actually give you some ideas of give you some reason of what page it's looking at, and try and speak to that, speak to what it's found. So it will mine vast amounts of data, which is one of the big challenges that some people have with large language models. But more importantly, you can go in and ask it questions. You can go in and say, how can I monetize my LinkedIn profile, or I've got this idea, can you do this? It'll come back with some ideas, but then you can go in and ask it follow-up questions. You can say, actually, I wasn't quite thinking of that. I'd like to explore this. I'd like to explore that. So you can have a conversation. Me and you could have a conversation about an idea I've got. After 10, 15 minutes, you probably get bored with what we're talking about because it doesn't really interest you. But I can sit with a large language model and create and, just create ideas, generate ideas, ask it questions, go off at tangents, then come back to it, delete that idea. So I certainly think it can do that. It can create ideas. You can also give it 2 ideas and say, actually, I've got this idea. I've got a great LinkedIn profile, but I've also got an interest in building model aircraft, which I don't. But how can I combine those 2? And there's nothing on my LinkedIn, and it will tell you. You can cross-pollinate ideas. Now, if I spoke to you about that as one human to another, you might be interested in my LinkedIn profile, but you're not interested in building model aircraft. So that conversation would quickly die out. But with large language models, it wouldn't. And of course, then you can go in and ask it lots of questions about who your competitors are, give me some business analysis, give me some research analysis, and it has access probably to it, company accounts and news reports, etc., etc. Now we can do that ourselves, but it would take days, months, even, and it will cost you a fortune if you went to a management consultant and asked them to give you a business plan for something. You can do that with large language models in a matter of literally minutes. But if you want to do it properly, spend a couple of hours and you can get some great business ideas almost fully worked up where you could go to a venture capitalist.
Absolutely. I mean, in short, do you mean to say it's more about the awareness and having an idea of the available AI tools? That makes more sense.
Well, I certainly think, coming back to what I was saying just now, it's certainly a good to have knowledge about what AI tools are out there. But I was thinking about this the other day, actually, in a different context. But I learned, I mean, I know quite a number of programming languages. I know COBOL from back in the day. I know BASIC. I know Java. I know C++. I know PHP. And I've always said I don't want to learn another programming language because, anything I want to do, I can do. I'm not a commercial programmer, so I'm not going to go and get a job programming. But for some reason, about, I don't know, 6 months ago, I wanted to learn Python. There was a good reason for me to learn Python. And I learned Python actually through ChatGPT. I said, can you show me how to install Python? It did. Can you show me how to set up an environment, a virtual environment, which I'd never heard of, which it did. And then I said, can you write me a function to do this? Now, the onus is on me to make sure that what it's doing is correct. If I'm going to sell this software or use it for research, I've got to make sure it's correct. So I had a good reason to learn Python. I don't have a good reason to learn Ruby or, all the other stuff that's out there. And AI is the same. You can't learn everything, but you've got to know what's out there so you can choose what AI methodology or what AI tool you use. I haven't learned another programming languages apart from Python probably for about 10 years, but I suddenly needed to know Python. So I decided to use that. And I was, a computer scientist at heart. So I know the languages out there. So I've got that intrinsic knowledge. And that's what people need for AI. They need to at least know where to look to find
Very
out
true.
what tool they need.
Absolutely. But there are certain regular activities that the entrepreneurs are involved day in, day out, maybe risk taking, decision making. How do you think this important ingredient or an activity of an entrepreneur? Can AI be handy over here?
To limit risk taking or to just
Yeah.
rephrase that question.
And also the fasten the right decision making processes.
Yeah, I think you need to be careful when you're using AI because what I found with AI, I was talking to it today. I was liaising with a large language model today, and it always wants to be really helpful. If I asked it a question, it always says, "That's a great question, Graham," blah, blah, blah. And then I say, "Yeah, but what about this?" They go, "Oh, yeah, excellent point. That's a great follow-up question." So I've found there's some bias in AI that it really wants to please. It really wants to give you good answers. And generally, I find 80% of the time, the answers it gives me are really good. But on occasions, I go back to it and I say, actually, I've used Python as an example again. I type in this, I copy and paste this Python function, run it, and it doesn't do what I asked it to do. And I go back and say, actually, this is the result I get. And it comes back and says, actually, that's a really good spot. Yes, here's the new one. Never apologizes, but it always gives me what it thinks is a really good answer. It really wants to please. Now, if you're trying to set up a business or you're trying to get it to co-found a company or whatever you're trying to get it to do, you have to be cautious in that don't believe everything it says. You've got to sanity check it. You've got to have some inbuilt inclination that actually what it's telling you, is that right? So there is a danger that AI is not objective. It will try to be, well, it won't try to be, it just spits out stuff. But you need to have that inbuilt check. So, sometimes as humans, hopefully a lot, we rely on our intuition. We think, this can't be right or this can't be wrong. Or sorry, this can't be right. It's got to be wrong. AI doesn't have that. It believes everything it says is right because, it's using its database, its truth tables, if you like, as the correct answer. So I don't think AI is objective, but truly objective. You really need to proceed with caution with what it's telling you, especially if you're setting up a business and investing your own money, but certainly and especially if you're setting up a particular types of business where you're open to legal and moral and ethical issues, you should not rely on AI. You can ask it, but you need to sanity check it. And either because you know it's right or wrong, or you go and get legal advice. If you ask it to generate a contract, then, at the moment, and probably for quite a long time to come, I hope you would need to go to a physical lawyer and say, look, my whole business is based on this. I need you to check it because I believe it's right, because AI is telling me it's right.
That's right.
So I think AI can bring objectivity to the party, but I think it probably can bring too much of it. And you need that human element in there that sort of sanity checks what it's saying.
I think the next question will be very apt to you because considering the research that you're doing, especially on the ethical front. So, what ethical concerns do you foresee if AI takes as a co-founder in the initial stages of the entrepreneurship journey, maybe startups? How do you see this?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately on the ethical moral side, the human who's doing it has to take responsibility for it. So I can see lots of issues in the future where there's a court case, or there's a big argument, and someone says, "But it's the AI that told me that." Well, that's not going to stand up in a court of law or in any human judgment.
Yes.
But if I come back to academic publishing again, an AI cannot be an author of a paper. And there was 2 or 3 papers around November 2022, of course, where ChatGPT was put as an author, and the journals quickly retracted those papers and took ChatGPT off on the basis that you can't hold it responsible. And if people start generating papers and publish them only with AI, then there's no one responsible for it. If 2 people author it, a human and an AI person, and there's something wrong with that paper, the human author could say, no, that was written by ChatGPT, not by me.
Exactly.
So they've said ChatGPT or large language models cannot be an author. And I think it's the same in businesses. You can't set up a business on the basis that AI said this or told you to do that. That's why an AI can't be a co-founder.
So you mean to say the accountability lies on the entrepreneur himself?
Yes, absolutely. If we don't have that as a sort of a standard way of working from here on forward with AI, then we're really in trouble, because no one's going to take responsibility for actions. Everyone is just going to blame AI.
That's great. While you spoke about the accountability issue, what safeguards should be in place to ensure AI doesn't amplify biases or create any unfair advantages in business ecosystem?
Well, I think that as we develop these companies, and we already are, the owners, the actual humans that own it, must know that they're responsible. They know, even if AI is telling them to do something and they trust it and they proceed down that route, they must know if something goes wrong, it's them that are responsible. It's not a defense in law to say it wasn't me, it was the AI that did that. We can't let that happen. So I think the only way is to make people accountable. And even that's difficult. Even pre-AI, people would blame other people, etc. But they can't have the get out clause that it was the AI, and then the person who's making the claim against the company or against the product or whatever has nowhere to go, because you can't sue a piece of AI. And if the people are just walking away from it, so it's the owners and founders of the company, they've got to realize that it's those that they're responsible for the AI.
That's great. Professor Graham, this is a platform where I would say the majority of the audience would be the students who would aspire to become the future entrepreneurs. So keeping them in mind, so this question is, what new skills should students and young entrepreneurs develop to work effectively with AI?
So I think, I mean, we've covered some of it already. I think you certainly need to know what AI tools are available, or at least know that there are so many tools available. You need to know to find them. So, you've almost got to be a researcher in AI, or a researcher capable of finding out what AI is available. You need to know how to use those tools, or at least the key ones that you're using. If you watch YouTube, almost, turn on YouTube and search for AI, there'll be people telling you that you're using ChatGPT wrong. It's not a replacement for Google. You should make sure you phrase your query in this way. So good prompt engineering. Then people are telling you should be able to use agents, etc. And you've also got to know what are the limitations of AI. You've got to have some, you don't need to know how AI works, but you need to know what the limitations are and what problems it can cause. So you need to know what AI is out there. You need to know how to use it, and you need to know the limitations. So you need to have some understanding of how it works. Once you do that, then you can start using AI to either generate business ideas or build a business based on some AI idea you've got that other people haven't used yet. Some model, a bespoke chat GPT. I recently looked at, and I never looked at this before, and again, everyone on this audience is going to go, what, you're a professor of AI and you never looked at this? I never looked until about 3 weeks ago at Notebook LM, Google's Notebook LM. And I looked at it and I thought, it's just a bit boring, really. But it's amazing because you actually load up your own database. I loaded up, I mean, this probably won't mean anything to most people there, but Jeffrey Bill was one of the founding people who coined the term predatory publishing. So I loaded up all of his papers into a Notebook LM and said, can you give me the top 10 tips that Jeffrey Bill said about how to avoid predatory publishing? And it told me top 10 tips. Now, whether they're the top 10 or not, I don't know, but I know about predatory publishing. I know Bill's work, and the top 10, the tips the tips that Notebook LM spat out were on point. And I've tweeted and linked in on this if you're interested. But I'm not saying that's a product, but I could see a product. Take Malaysia, for example. Malaysia Qualification Agency is, the bane of everybody's life in Malaysia. It's the qualifications agency that governs higher education. I'm now thinking, actually, because I don't know much about that. I don't know much about QA. I'm not, that interested in it. I just have to abide by it. But I'm thinking there's a product out there where we can just dump all of the QA files into a LLM, and then we can, I mean, I'm not sure we could sell it because it's not our property, but then we could, make it available to people to ask questions about the Malaysian Qualifications Agency, which is nightmarish if you want to go and look at it online. So, but to do that, I need to know what tools are out there, and I need to know how to inquire it. But one of the problems, coming back to our earlier question about the ethical things, is that data mine to do? That's data that I've downloaded from the MQA website. Do I have the right to use that data? Probably, because it's in the public domain. Do I have the right to exploit it though and make money from it? Probably not. I mean, I could get into hot water over that. So that's where my sort of warning sign comes in, saying, can I build a business on that idea? The papers I fed in from Jeffrey Bill, a lot of them are behind paywalls. I've got them because I'm allowed to look at them through, because of the subscription I've got through the university. But could I sell that data? Could I sell that service? Probably not, because I'm violating copyright. But LLMs violate copyright every day. Especially if you want it to generate an image, some people will not use AI to generate an image because they think, probably right, that it's just going and capturing photographs and pictures and paintings, etc. So I think there's lots of moral and ethical issues to be had, but I think there's lots of ideas that we can come up with. But the students of tomorrow and today have got to know what AI tools are out there, how you use them, and then generate some ideas. But they need to think about underneath it all, are they going to get into trouble? I mean, we can debate whether it's morally or ethically right, and that's a huge grey scale there. But are you going to get into trouble? So I think the skills that the students of today have got to have encompasses lots of different things. But ultimately, they've got to be able to question what they're doing, and is it right, legally, ethically, or morally. And you might not care about the ethics or the morals, but you will care about the legal when people come after you because you're exploiting their data or using it in ways which they didn't want you to, when you don't own the copyright to it.
That's great. Well, Professor Graham, you had one of the most prestigious university, which has its base or roots from China, which itself is known for the tremendous technological integrations in its business processes. So I would definitely want to know your views. How is Mila University in Malaysia nurturing tomorrow's entrepreneurs, especially with regard to AI?
Yeah, I mean, you're very kind. We are quite a new university. We were Manipal University, which was an Indian-owned company. We're now Chinese-owned, as you said. And it didn't fail under Manipal, but Manipal knew they wanted to exit. So, the university, if I'm honest, and I think Manipal would say the same, was on a downhill track. So we're trying to recover that now. And we are trying to, and I suspect every university in the world says this and is trying to do this, but we are trying to build AI into every course that we run because we think that's the right way to do it. But I was talking to someone recently, the last couple of days, one of our marketing people, and they gave me this marketing spiel that they had about our School of Computer Science. And they were talking about IR4. And I said, don't use IR4. IR4 is, I don't know, at least 10 years old. And, we can argue we're going into IR5. We can argue that IR4 is fairly relevant now with AI. I mean, I know IR4 includes AI, but, IR4 is old news in my mind, personally. Might not be for some people. But we should be talking about AI. And we're now setting up, just got the money for it from, approved by our board, to set up our new computer lab, which is going to feature robotics, data science, analytics, AI, of course. And I think that's where we should be focusing our attention. That's where our marketing should be focusing our attention. But that's where we need to show people that if you come to Mila University, and whether you do computer science, it's computer engineering here, because it's part of the engineering discipline, but whether you do computer science or biotechnology, which we have, or engineering or business, you're going to have some AI in there. And we're trying to develop a number of AI courses, which they won't be in every program because that's through MQA, Malaysia Qualifications Agency. That's sort of impractical, and it's probably is right that it's impractical. But we'd like to make those courses available to everybody so they can do them as optional courses. So I used to be at another university in Malaysia, UK-based university, Nottingham, and we used to say, you cannot leave the University of Nottingham without having soft skills, without doing a presentation, without doing some debating, without doing, creative writing. And that's still true, and it's still a valid. Soft skills are very important. But what's more important, I think, now is you cannot go through university you cannot go through university and come out the other side without knowing something about AI. If you don't do that, if your university does not do that, then they're letting you down. So we're trying to build AI into everything we do, but without tying ourselves in. That's why I don't want to tie ourselves into IR4, because IR5 will come along and IR6, or the next generation of AI. So we've got to be agile. We've got to teach what's up to date. We've got to refresh our programs every, say, 2 years. But when you leave university, you've got to know about AI. And it's similar to programming. I've always been a computer scientist. We never taught somebody how to use a specific programming language, because if I teach you Java, then you're going to go into a job with PHP. If I teach you PHP, they're going to want Python, etc., etc. What we taught you is how to program. What we want to teach you at Miller is how to use AI. We're not going to teach you ChatGPT. We might use that as the vehicle to teach you AI, but we're not going to teach you ChatGPT. We're not going to teach you DeepSeek. We're going to teach you prompt engineering. So when you go into industry and they say we use this new variant of an LLM, you at least understand the basics. So that's what we're trying to do. I mean, there's lots of detail and nuances across our courses, but we want to do that. And of course, that does feed into our entrepreneurial program, which we do in our business school. I'm not a business school person, as Prof knows. I'm a computer scientist, but
I know Professor Lee Chu. I think he's
yes,
heading that business school.
yes, yeah. He's actually, I mean, he's on an extended medical leave at the moment. So unfortunately, he would have been very good to have him on this conversation, but he can't be with us at the moment. But yeah, I've known him for about 15 years. So yeah, he's very business school focused. I'm very computer science focused. But I find those two disciplines coming together more and more these days.
I must mention that I had a great pleasure of hosting Professor Lee Chu in our last to last month IRE talk.
All right, yeah, I remember it actually. I saw that being advertised.
So my last question to you before I take up a couple of questions from students. Where do you see AI and entrepreneurship going in the next decade? Maybe by 2035, where do you see AI and entrepreneurship moving?
Yeah, well, I think and again, this comes back to what we were saying earlier on. I don't, it's hard to predict, but I think what AI is doing for us at the moment, and this is in the short term, I'll talk about the 2035 in a minute, is it's a lot easier. It lowers the barriers to entry for creating businesses. If you wanted to create a business, 15, 20 years ago, you'd have to get a spreadsheet out, you have to draw up a business plan or a cash flow forecast, etc., then do a business plan, etc. AI now allows you to do that. You can go on and say, create me a business plan that I can show to a bank, create me a spreadsheet, show them a cash flow, etc. It will do that with all the caveats that I've said before. You need to check it, you need to understand it, you need to be able to answer to it. So it's really lowered the barrier to entry for creating businesses. And allowed you to do it in a much more robust way, and that you can do much more market research than you could do before. It can do much more what if analysis with your spreadsheets, etc. But I think that the danger of that, not the danger, but one element of that or one result of that is it goes into this Red Queen effect. Yeah, if I can do it, you can do it. Now, if I can do it and you can't do it, I'm ahead of you. So there's lots of people around me doing exactly the same thing. So it's that same thing. You have to run just to stay still. So it's lowering the cost of entry into creating businesses, but it's lowering the cost for everybody. And there was I wish I could. I mentioned this quote quite a lot, but I can never remember who it's by. But in 2010, somebody said, "Change has never been this fast as it is now, and it will never be this slow again." And it's just, it's getting faster and faster and faster. It will never slow down. So if you keep up with it, you're just standing still. You've got to somehow try and get ahead of the game. So AI certainly helps you set up and start businesses, and obviously helps in lots of other ways. But to really make an impact, you've got to somehow find a niche, as you always have done. You've always had to find a niche to set up a business. The same is true now, but many people will find those niches through AI. I think in 10 years' time, and I'm obviously just out on a limb here, I think there will be an instance where AI could be recognized as a founding member of the team, and there could be some if I generated a business using AI, maybe some of those shares could be attributed to that AI. It's attributed to me, but maybe I could pass it on to my family. So it could be an element of that. I think that's a major major obstacle to overcome, because who owns that, and it captures all inheritance rules, etc., etc. But in 10 years' time, we could find that AI is recognized as a legal entity, and there's lots of barriers to get over that. But I think the other thing that AI could be doing is operating much more on a 24/7 scenario. I mean, you can put AI in, there's agents that can do things and be there for you. But actually, and they do it in stock market trading. I mean, they allow, and they've done it for years, pre-AI, but they allow agents to trade. And maybe as we go forward, you can put an AI agent out there and you actually have it, the confidence that it will run your business. And we could be sitting here and businesses will just be running on AI agents. That I can certainly see that happening in less than 10 years, actually.
That's a fantastic prediction. I really hope that will happen.
Yeah, especially if you're on the receiving end of the money, then yeah.
True. Yep, I would take few questions, so one or two, couple of questions from the students. I should also respect the paucity of time. I had promised Professor Graham that I would wind it up in 1 hour, so I have to meet that. So I would definitely take up a very important questions. So here it is. So can AI provide emotional intelligence, or is it limited to rational decision making?
So I don't think at the moment it can show emotional intelligence, because it's effectively calling on the data that it knows, and it's just reporting that. I think you could have a conversation and ask it what emotional intelligence is and give you some examples, and it would give you those examples, but it would still be just calling off what it knows from its data sources. So I think it is at the moment purely logical. I think it not hides it well. It doesn't know it's doing it, but you can have conversations with it and you don't believe it's logical. You don't believe it's just pure logic, but it is. It can only respond to the data that it's got in the data it's been trained on. So I don't know. I'd be interested in what other people know, what other people think, but I don't think that computers can show EQ at the moment.
Absolutely. I mean, this next question is quite important. In fact, I wanted to ask and I missed it. So the question is, with so many data privacy concerns coming up in AI-driven businesses, how do you think this will shape the way the startups grow and evolve by 2030, 2035?
I think it's something that the world needs to address, because I mean, I'll give you again. I'll draw it back to predatory publishing. Omics, which is a predatory publisher, if you ever come across it, you never publish in Omics. Omics was fined $50 million by a court in America in 2017, I think. They've never paid that because they don't operate in America. They operate out of another country, so they can't, call in that fine. And the problem we've got, and it's not just AI, but the problem we've got is that we don't have agreements across international boundaries. And if we do, it's not across all international boundaries. So people will operate out of the countries where they know they're immune to, prosecution. So I think the world has somehow, and I think that actually this will take longer than 10 years, probably take 50 years. The world has somehow got to have a legal framework which encompasses every part of the world. So if you do something illegal maybe only in certain aspects, but certainly AI, if you do something illegal or immoral or whatever, and you get fined in one country, then that's, you're culpable whatever country you're in. But that's a human thing, and I don't think 50 years is probably an underestimate for that. So it's a huge problem, and I don't think I know we haven't addressed that problem yet, and I think that's a huge problem that we've got, well, on the horizon here and now.
That's right. Well, I would take the final question with your permission, Professor Graham.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is quite good again. I would definitely love to know your views on this. Considering the massive energy consumption of training large AI models, what research directions are promising for making AI development more sustainable?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And
Indeed, yes.
again, I've only recently, I hear about it, but I've only recently sort of looked into it, and the figures are frightening about the amount of consumption that it uses in terms of electricity or water, and often in places in the world that can least, you know, most in danger from overuse of those resources. I think, and again, I'm not speaking from a position of total knowledge here, but I think China are probably doing some good work in the area. I think when DeepSeek came out, they said it's orders of magnitude less computationally intensive than what large language models were previously using. I think there's a whole load of research to be done in that area, and I don't know enough technically about why it is so computationally expensive. I mean, it's similar, I guess, to Bitcoin mining. Yeah, I mean, there's whole big farms of Bitcoins just trying to mine Bitcoin, and that's using huge amounts of power. And I guess large language models are being trained. And if you look at the amount of data that's generated every day, in the last, I'm not sure this is true, but in the last second, we've created more data than we did 10 years ago, in a year or something. I don't know. It's figures of those sorts of magnitude. So I guess large language models have just got to keep learning, and that's going to get exponentially more difficult and eventually use up all the world's resources. So something needs to be done, but I don't know what. Because I don't know what. If I did, I'd be a rich man probably. It's a massive problem. It is a massive problem.
That is a massive problem. Absolutely. Well, there's always a misconception on the technology and the budget. So there was one question that actually prompts me to take this question, the last question to you.
Yep.
So this is an interesting question. How can startups and small organization leverage AI without huge budgets? I think it's a very good question.
Okay, it is a good question actually. And I once, when I was in a previous role, I was trying to raise some money to do some research. And I went to the chemical engineers and said, "What sort of money do you want?" And their answer was, "We need this lab equipment, that lab, we need mass spectrometers, we need centrifuges, we need all this equipment, I don't know, 2 million ringgit or pounds or whatever, it doesn't matter." I went to the social scientists, I think it was mathematicians, and I said, "What do you want?" They said, "We just need a pencil, and occasionally we might need a rubber. That's it, because all of our research we can do there. We can do, with just a pencil." And when I left the UK, I wanted to find some research I could do, which didn't require a lot of money, a lot of resources, which is one of the reasons I started looking at predatory publishing, because really I can just read a few journal articles. I might do some scraping of websites, which is generally how I get some data. And it's pretty cheap. All I need is a computer and I can do all of my research. And I see businesses as the same. If you want to create a business, I mean, I suppose the good example is drop shipping. If you want to create a product, I'm not an expert on this, but you tend to do it via drop shipping, because then you don't have to hold stock, you don't have to handle all the logistics, etc., etc. So I think there's lots of ways that you could start up a business. You just need to be selective of the business area and the niche, and also what framework you're putting in place. You don't want to be handling you don't want to be holding inventory. You don't want to be handling all the shipping, etc. You can farm that out, and it's very easy to do that these days. But you still need a good business idea, sustainable. It's easy to find, probably easy to find a good business idea, but if you don't protect it, or other people, it's so good that other people copy it. So you need a good business idea which people can't easily copy. But then, low costs and low overheads. They're no different to any other business model, I don't think. You need to keep an eye on your costs, you need to keep an eye on your overheads. if you can invest in a website and a couple of AI products, ChatGPT, $20 a month, maybe another AI tool. If you can generate a business around there, then your overheads are fairly small. And then and as you scale up, I'm always amazed actually how the large companies such as, Google, Microsoft, they've got thousands, hundreds of thousands of employees. And I've never really understood why they need that many people. If they're so good at tech, why do they need these hundreds of thousands of employees? When you mentioned Elon Musk, when he took over Twitter, when he bought Twitter out, he laid off half the workforce.
Absolutely.
I use Twitter. I haven't really noticed any difference. I mean, I've noticed difference because it's Elon Musk running it, but the actual services it provides, no difference. So they were obviously overstaffed. I feel sorry for the people that lost their jobs. And I suspect the same is of Microsoft and Google. So if you're setting up a company, it's similar to any other business. Look after the costs. Don't, I mean, I'm sure Prof finds it as well. If I want to take on extra staff, it's really difficult because, the business people, and, I guess we're some of them, they know that as soon as you take on a staff, that's a recurring cost every month for years, probably 20, 30 years. So they're really reluctant to do that. And when you start up a business, you should be really reluctant to spend money. And the money you spend, you should be able to justify. And if you grow bigger, then fine, you can invest in other things. But really be careful what you invest in.
Absolutely. Fantastic. I mean, that's a very apt answer. So, yes, I think we are ending one of the fabulous discussion I had with Professor Graham on this prestigious IRE platforms and his deep insights, his deep knowledge on the topic is incredible. Well, what makes me think right now is that, more than having you in the technical platform, I would definitely wish to have you in person in my campus one day where we can have an elaborated discussion with my students and the faculty. Well, I think that was a fabulous session. As expected, I knew your capability and I was behind you from many months that please do visit us once for the online session. And finally, I was able to make it up. And yep, thank you so very much. On behalf of all my students and all my management team and the faculties, I extend my heartfelt thanks to you, Professor Graham, for your precious time with us. I know it's already, it's around 8 o'clock in Malaysia right now, if I'm right.
9 o'clock, coming up to 9.
9 o'clock, and somebody sparing the time for students at late night is something that we need to really, really appreciate. Thank you, Professor Graham. Only a true academician, hardcore academician, can accept such invitations to engage sessions even after the office hours. We are so very grateful to have you. Thank you so much. I look forward to many more interactions in the coming days. And I personally wish to visit Mila campus once that is completely ready to be occupied by the students. I definitely has that in the wish list. Well, I also thank all the students who have gathered on this prestigious talk. Thank you so much for being there. And I also appreciate the quality of questions that you have posted. Thank you so much for that. And extremely apology for those whose question I was not able to take it up because of the paucity of time. Well, you can always write to me, and I can forward those questions to Professor Graham, and he can definitely revert whenever he's free. But otherwise, I can make a promise that whenever he's in India next, he's going to visit us. I'll make sure of that.
Okay.
Also, my request to everyone there who have not yet subscribed to our social media platforms, please do like us, GIBS IRE Talks, GIBS Business School, and all the social media platforms. And I have a personal request too. Please do follow Professor Graham. He's very active, and I would say following him is like buying a textbook. You have every piece of information with him. I'm the big time follower of Professor Graham. Let me make that announcement in the open platform. And I just love reading his work. That is incredible. I would request all my audience to do that as well. For now, this is Professor Guru Prasad signing off, and thank you everyone for your patience and wonderful interaction. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you for the questions and for the students. And I know it's late with you as well. I mean, it's gone office hours, so thank you for hanging on. So thanks, everyone, and look forward, as Prof says, look forward to seeing you on social media, and please reach out to me. Okay. Have a good rest of the evening.
Thank you. Thanks, Prof.
Bye.
Good night. Good night. Bye-bye.